There was a lot of love in the room. Okay, joining us now, CNN's political commentators Dave Jacobson, who is a Democratic strategist, and John Thomas, a Republican consultant. Also with us, Jessica Levinson. She's a clinical professor of law and governance at Loyola Law School. So thank you all for being with us. Okay, and day 279 of the Trump presidency, which began with the giddy excitement over revelations the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party had partially financed the now infamous dossier about Donald Trump and Russia, which we will get to, John, so hold firm. However, it did end with confirmation of yet another contact between the Trump campaign and someone connected to Russian hackers. Here's part of Pamela Brown's reporting.
Sources tell CNN that the head of Cambridge Analytica, a data firm working for the Trump campaign, reached out to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange during the campaign, asking about Hillary Clinton's missing emails. Julian Assange acknowledged this today on Twitter that did happen. He says he rejected the request. So the head of the firm, Alexander Nix, sent an email to several people, including top Republican donor Rebecca Mercer, relaying that he had reached out to Assange. But sources tell us, my colleague Dana Bash, that no one from the actual Trump campaign was on the email chain.
Okay, to be clear, these are the 33,000 missing Clinton emails from a time as Secretary of State. But Jessica, does this attempt at collaboration, does it raise new questions at least about the Trump campaign, its willingness to work with WikiLeaks for political gain?
Sure, it raises questions, but that's exactly what it raises. It doesn't provide any answers. So it provides what a lot of us thought, which is that the Trump campaign, unsurprisingly, wanted to get their hands on these emails. And that's exactly what President Trump has said. He said, you know, I hope somebody in the press gets their hand on these 33,000 emails. That would be really great. And so he obviously thought this would be damaging. It's fairly clear that WikiLeaks, which released information that was damaging to Hillary Clinton right after the Access Hollywood tapes that were very damaging to Donald Trump, it's fairly clear that they were supportive of President Trump. And so I think at this point, as in so many things, we're still at the information gathering phase.
Jessica, let's just remind our viewers of how much President Trump and his campaign wanted those Clinton emails, as he proclaimed many, many times in public. Let's run some tape, shall we?
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
That doesn't seem odd or anything right now, does it?
Yeah, I mean, John, he really, really, really wanted them.
And the difference is Donald Trump says that on television and publicly on Twitter, where Hillary Clinton alleges collusion by the Trump campaign. Meanwhile, they're funding essentially Russian allies and Russian agents to get dirt and try to use Russia to tank Trump. So yet feigning outrage that Trump is colluding with Russia. So it's just so hypocritical. At least Trump does it in public.
One thing has to be said. Donald Trump went out there and gave that speech or those remarks back in July, I think days after the Trump Jr. meeting, where obviously they thought there was going to be some bombshell stemming from that meeting. We still don't know all the details about it. Obviously, Mueller's investigating it. But that does raise...
Did they pay for that meeting like Hillary paid for the dossier?
Perhaps that's something that'll come out in the investigation.
And also important context, though, for our viewers, before you go down the partisan talking points. It's opposition research, right? This is what people do in the game.
Well, but what I find fascinating is that's opposition research, but Trump is potentially colluding by getting information from WikiLeaks.
Yeah, but this is
what is exactly the difference? It's either collusion or it's not. I would agree with you, it's opposition research. I think the difference is the Clinton campaign staked the whole ball of wax on this collusion angle, and in fact, they were doing essentially the same thing.
Yeah, but let's state the facts. Like the U.S. intelligence agencies, all of which, before Donald Trump became president, came out and proactively said the Russians meddled in our election. Bottom line.
And to that point, Jessica, just
clearly with the Clinton campaign.
And to that point, you know, Republicans are now going to say they're going to trumpet the president's line. This is a fake. This is politically motivated. But we just heard Dave make the point. The intelligence agencies had already stated, right, that Russia was trying to meddle.
Well, that's exactly right. And all the intelligence agents and agencies, and they were all unanimous in this. So we're talking about Yes. Is it surprising that each campaign wanted to win and that in their effort to win, they were trying to gather opposition research? Not at all. This surprises no one ever. But the fact that as a result of that opposition research, that's what we're really looking at. What did you ultimately find? And I think it's important to remember a couple things. One is that collusion is not a legal term. It's what we basically say to mean we think that you impermissibly meddled. And that's what's being investigated, for instance, by special counsel Robert Mueller. He's saying there is this research, there is this dossier, and we're going to try and verify it. And if we can't verify it, we won't use it. But this raises, regardless of how we got it, it raises significant concerns. And again, it seems to be consistent with what we heard every U.S. intelligence agency say.
Just hold off, John, because I just want to play some sound from President Trump, because he was sad and he was angry to find out that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party had actually funded part of this dossier on him and Russia. And by sad and angry, I mean delighted and over the moon.
Well, I think it's very sad what they've done with this fake dossier. It was made up, and I understand they paid a tremendous amount of money, and Hillary Clinton always denied it. The Democrats always denied it. And now only because it's going to come out in a court case, they said, yes, they did it, they admitted it, and they're embarrassed by it. But I think it's a disgrace.
So, John, bring you in, because the argument coming out from the Trump team is that basically if the case against collusion between Russia and Trump is based on the dossier was politically motivated, then therefore it's a hit job, and there is no case against the Trump campaign.
Yeah, I don't know.
Although at best, you could say it just muddies the waters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it muddies the waters. It calls into question perhaps the political independence of the FBI. Perhaps they should have done not just taken a DNC and Clinton paid document and vetted that. They might have done their own investigation. But I don't know if I buy the Trump team spin on this. What the questions that there's two separate things we were talking about. We were saying, did the Russians meddle in the election? I think we all agree, other than Trump, we all agree that they did. We're debating collusion, but the other thing we found out today is that the Clinton campaign may have broken the law twice. One is washing this opposition research through a law firm illegally when you're required to disclose the items. So that may have been a law broken. And the other question I'm seeing float around is treason, because if they're hiring foreign agents, I don't believe you're able to hire foreign agents in federal campaigns.
Last time I checked, he's an ex-foreign agent.
Who, by the way, was in charge of the Russia desk for MI6.
Okay.
And Kremlin, well,
and treason cuts both ways,
but
too.
It's true. But also, they're saying that he used Kremlin-backed sources for his intel. So arguably, one could say if money washed through him to the
Okay,
it's muddy.
Let's just play. This is what Brian Fallon, who was the Clinton campaign manager, had to say about the dossier and Clinton's involvement and the campaign's involvement.
I think it's important to remember that A, opposition research happens all the time in campaigns. B, before, the reason that Fusion GPS had a head start on this and basically came to the campaign and pitched us was because they already had been commissioned and hired during the Republican primary.
So, Jessica, this is the issue. Maybe the dossier and the information in it is fine. It's basically the accounting on the other at the end of this, not declaring it to the Federal Election Commission, and it looks like right now that it wasn't declared, and that's a crime.
I think that first of all, I'm not sure we're there yet in terms of saying yes, for sure you violated the Federal Election Campaign Act, as all of us who are following the FEC know, unfortunately, they're a deadlocked agency that takes virtually no action most of the time. So even if there's a problem here, I'm not sure that we're going to see the FEC acting on it. But yes, there might be a legitimate disclosure issue. But I think that the Trump campaign kind of saying, well, the real scandal is that you didn't report this on the forms. I think that's kind of like going to the hospital and suing the hospital because they amputated the wrong leg, and then the hospital saying, well, the real scandal is that you impermissibly parked in the staff parking lot. I mean, it's just so besides the point.
And John and Dave, and this is to you both, I mean, the fact is, as we understand it right now from reporting, this opposition research started with fellow Republicans.
Yeah, for sure. We still don't know who.
So, I mean, the fact of the hiring
everyone's in it up to their necks.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's essentially it. But regardless, the difference is whoever the Republican that tried to take Trump out in the primary that started funding this project, was not public saying, alleging collusion, staking the whole ball of wax, that they're in bed with the Russians and using the Russians to beat Hillary Clinton. In fact, Hillary Clinton was potentially using the Russians to beat Donald Trump.
And David, if what Fallon says is correct, if it was just Oppo research, why not declare it? Yeah, we paid for it. Move on. Done.
Yeah, I'm all for more transparency for sure. Whoever obviously made the decision ultimately not to declare it, I think that was the wrong move. Same thing with the Republicans. But look, at the end of the day, I have to agree with Brian Fallon. Earlier, I think it was last night, he tweeted that if something comes out of this from the investigation that Mueller's looking into, it was worth it. At the end of the day, like if Donald Trump committed a crime, we ought to know about it.
But let me ask Jessica this, and Dave obviously would like your take on it. Jessica, does this have long-term implications for the DNC, though? I mean, obviously the DNC is in the mix here.
I think that's right. In terms of long-term implications, I guess I would say two things. One is the DNC very quickly said the current leadership didn't know about this. If the DNC knew, it wasn't the people who are in charge now, and we've had turnover. The other thing is, I think in our current climate, there is just so much information coming at us, so many, we say there's so many potential crimes. In terms of whether this will long-term hurt the DNC, my guess is no, because I don't think that voters, particularly swing voters, are really moved by, is it possible that the DNC helped to fund opposition research when, of course, the DNC wants Hillary Clinton to win? I think it's one more problem for the DNC.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Jessica. We're almost out of time, but I want to get finally to essentially the president. He was in a very good mood. He said he's a really nice guy. He's really smart. He's got a really good memory. And any sort of image problems he has right now, it's all because of the media making him look bad.
Well, I think the press makes me more uncivil than I am. You know, people don't understand. I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. The fact is, I really believe, I think the press creates a different image of Donald Trump than the real person.
Yes, it's the press's fault, but could that be the media organization like Fox News, which has now interviewed Donald Trump as president 19 times compared to 4 other appearances combined on ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC? I mean, this is unprecedented, Dave, that Trump continues to speak to this friendly outfit and get these softball questions.
Yeah, it's become a mouthpiece of his administration. The fact is, the media, largely, at least the more objective outlets, like CNN, of course, basically just like takes Donald Trump footage and just puts it out there and repeats what he says with live coverage, oftentimes, whether it's his staff at the podium or Donald Trump himself at press conferences like earlier today. I mean, when Donald Trump goes out there and says, I've got a really good brain, or I'm smarter than the generals, and CNN or other networks like put it out there, and highlight the coverage, like it's Donald Trump's own words that the media is reporting on.
Donald Trump does self-inflict a lot of these wounds, but I will say across our politics, candidates and office holders become caricatures of themselves, partly due to the news cycle, but also because other candidates in advertising cherry-pick quotes, and Donald Trump gives you plenty to cherry-pick.
Yeah, I think the challenge is when he's like in self-sabotage mode and he puts out these tweets, like it's incumbent upon the press to report it to the American people.
You don't grow your base if you keep talking to the same people, and on that, we will say thank you. David and John, and also Jessica, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Jessica. Great contribution. Thank you.